The mining colony on Nexus 7 was never meant to make history. It was a small operation run by the Galactic Alliance, harvesting rare minerals from the lonely moon orbiting a gas giant in the Cepheus sector. Director Kim stood in the control room, his weathered face illuminated by flashing emergency lights. "Send it again," he ordered, voice steady despite the circumstances. Officer Park nodded, her fingers dancing across the console. "Distress signal broadcasting on all Alliance frequencies, sir." Beyond the reinforced windows, the excavation site was visible, a massive pit where the miners had discovered something that shouldn't exist. The artifact was roughly cylindrical, made of a material that defied analysis, covered in symbols no database could identify. "Any response?" Kim asked. "Nothing yet, but something's happening with the artifact." The object had begun to glow, pulsing with an internal light that seemed to bend the very air around it. "It's sending its own signal," whispered Park. "And it's not aimed at Alliance space." When the Alliance vessel Horizon finally arrived 3 days later, they found only silence. Captain Lee stepped onto the colony grounds, environmental suits sealed against the thin atmosphere, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Find me that artifact," she ordered her team, "and find out where its signal went." The Horizon was not a military vessel. It was a response ship designed for rescue operations and scientific research. Captain Lee had not expected to find an empty colony. She had brought medical supplies, repair teams, and food, not weapons. "Spread out, teams of 3, ordered Security Chief Jun. His hand rested on his sidearm. Standard issue, meant to deal with the occasional unruly miner, not whatever had emptied an entire colony. Officer Min scanned the silent buildings with her handheld device. "Life signs detected in the main research facility," she reported. "Very faint." Captain Lee led the way, her boots making soft sounds on the metal walkway. The doors to the research facility were locked, but Chief Engineer Sung bypassed the security with practiced ease. Inside, the air was stale. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across abandoned workstations. Cups of cold coffee sat next to still active displays. "Hello," called Lee. "This is Captain Lee of the Alliance vessel Horizon *. We received your distress call." A weak voice responded from the back of the room. "Over here." They found Director Kim slumped against a wall, a makeshift bandage wrapped around his leg. His face was pale, his eyes unfocused. "The others?" Lee asked as the medical team rushed to Kim's side. "Gone," Kim whispered. "The artifact took them." Dr. Yoon administered medication while scanning Kim's injuries. "He's dehydrated and has lost blood, but he'll live." Kim grabbed Lee's arm with surprising strength. "You need to leave. Now. Before it comes back." "Before what comes back?" Lee asked. But Kim had passed out. The team continued their search of the facility. They found the laboratory where the artifact had been stored. The reinforced containment unit had been torn open from the inside. Strange burn marks scarred the walls and floor. Officer Min picked up a data tablet. "Look at this," she said, showing it to Captain Lee. They were recording the artifact's emissions. The data showed energy spikes, growing stronger over time. The final reading was off the charts. "It was building power," said Chief Engineer Sung. "But for what?" Security Chief Jun pointed to the ceiling. A perfect circle had been cut through the metal, all the way up through the dome that protected the colony from the moon's thin atmosphere. "I think we know where the miners went," he said grimly. Back on the Horizon *, Director Kim regained consciousness. Captain Lee sat by his bed in the medical bay. "Tell me what happened," she said. Kim's eyes darted around, as if searching for unseen threats. "We found it 3 weeks ago, buried deep in the eastern quadrant. Unlike anything we'd seen before. The artifact." Kim nodded. "We followed protocol. Contained it, started basic analysis. It seemed dormant at first." "What changed?" "One of our scientists, Hyun, noticed patterns in the symbols. He thought they might be a language. He fed them into our translation matrix. Kim's hands began to shake. That's when it woke up. What did it do? It called to them. My people. They started acting strange, drawn to it. Then the power surges began. Kim closed his eyes, reliving the nightmare. I tried to lock down the lab, but they overrode the security. Said they needed to help it. By the time I sent the distress signal, half the colony was already in the lab, standing around that thing like they were worshipping it. Captain Lee felt a chill run down her spine. And then it started glowing. Those who touched it changed. Their eyes, their skin. Kim shuddered. I ran, locked myself in a storage room. I heard the screams as it tore through the ceiling. Then silence. You said the artifact took them. Took them where? Up. Kim pointed toward the sky. But that's not the worst part. The artifact wasn't just sending a signal. It was responding to one. Something called it. And now, his voice broke. Now it's called something back. At that moment, Officer Park rushed into the medical bay. Captain, you need to see this. On the bridge, the sensor operator pointed to strange readings coming from deep space, far beyond the galactic rim. Something's coming, said Officer Min. Multiple objects, moving at impossible speeds. How soon? Asked Lee. At their current velocity. Hours, not days. Captain Lee made a decision. Send a Priority 1 alert to Alliance Command. Tell them. She paused, weighing her words carefully. Tell them whatever answered that distress signal isn't from any world we know. As the message transmitted, the stars outside the viewport seemed to dim, as if a shadow was passing over the galaxy itself. The surveillance footage recovered from the mining colony showed the final moments before communications ceased. Director Kim and his team had attempted to move the artifact to a secure lab. That's when it activated, sending a focused beam of energy straight up through the colony dome and into space. Captain Lee rewatched the footage in the Horizon's Command Center, surrounded by her senior officers. Analysis confirms the signal was directed beyond the galactic rim, said Science Officer Choi. Which makes no sense. There's nothing out there. Nothing we know of, corrected Security Chief Han. The artifact's composition matches no known material in our database, but there are certain similarities to theoretical technology attributed to humans. Humans? Lee raised an eyebrow. They've been extinct for thousands of years. The bridge fell silent as proximity alarms suddenly blared to life. Captain, called the sensor operator. Something's approaching from the direction the artifact's signal was sent. It's moving faster than should be possible. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to fold. A vessel emerged, dwarfing the Horizon asterisk. Its design was unlike anything in Alliance records. Sleek black hull with lines that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. We're being hailed, said Communications Officer Moon, voice trembling. The message came through clear and precise in an ancient language few still understood. We received your call. Humanity stands with you. The bridge crew froze. Captain Lee gripped the arms of her command chair, her knuckles white. Is that really human language? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Officer Moon nodded, his face pale. Ancient Earth standard. It matches our historical records with 99.8% accuracy. Show me the vessel, Lee ordered. The view screen zoomed out, revealing the true scale of the alien ship. The Horizon at 600 meters long, was considered a mid-sized Alliance vessel. This newcomer stretched nearly 5 kilometers from end to end. Its hull was midnight black, with strange blue lights pulsing along its length in patterns that seemed almost like writing. No visible weapons, reported Security Chief Han, though his tone suggested this offered little comfort. No engine emissions our sensors can detect. No radiation signature. It's like it's not even there, except we can see it. Can we translate a response? Lee asked Moon. I think so. The translation matrix is processing their language now. Lee stood up, straightening her uniform. Tell them. This is Captain Lee of the Alliance vessel Horizon *. We are investigating a distress signal from the mining colony below. Who are you? Moon relayed the message. Seconds ticked by intense silence. The response came with a visual this time. On the screen appeared a human man with dark skin and closely cropped hair. He wore a simple gray uniform with no visible markings or insignia. Captain Lee, I am Commander Kang of the human vessel Pathfinder *. We received a signal from one of our beacons on the moon below. Are you in danger? Lee exchanged glances with her officers before responding. The mining colony discovered an artifact. It activated and sent a signal. Most of the colonists are missing. Commander Kang's expression darkened. The artifact is not just a beacon. It's a warning system. It detected a threat and called for help. A threat from whom? Not from whom. To whom? To you. To all sentient life in this galaxy. Kang paused. Captain Lee, with your permission, I would like to come aboard your vessel to explain the situation. It would be easier face to face. Science Officer Choi approached Lee, speaking quietly. Captain, if these really are humans, this changes everything we know about galactic history. And if they're not? Lee whispered back. Then we're dealing with something that can perfectly mimic an extinct species and build ships that our sensors can barely detect, Choi replied. Either way, we need to know more. Lee nodded and addressed the screen again. Commander Kang, you may board. You and 2 others only. We'll prepare our docking bay. Thank you, Captain. We'll arrive shortly. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. All senior officers to the docking bay, Lee ordered. Security detail as well, but keep weapons holstered. We don't want to appear hostile. As they made their way through the corridors of the Horizon *, Security Chief Han moved alongside Lee. Captain, if these are truly humans, why haven't they made contact before now? Why wait thousands of years? I don't know, Lee admitted, but I intend to find out. The docking bay was the largest open space on the ship. A small shuttle from the massive vessel approached, sleek and silent like its mothership. It passed through the atmospheric barrier without requesting docking protocols, a technological feat that made Chief Engineer Sung inhale sharply in surprise. The shuttle settled gently on the deck. Its hull shimmered slightly, as if it wasn't quite solid. A door appeared in its side where no seam had been visible before. 3 figures stepped out. They looked surprisingly normal. 2 men and a woman, all wearing the same simple gray uniforms. Commander Kang led the way, flanked by a tall woman with long hair tied back and a stockier man with kind eyes. Captain Lee, Kang said, bowing slightly in greeting. Thank you for receiving us. These are my colleagues, Medical Officer Jin and Science Director Du. Lee introduced her own officers, watching the humans carefully. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed just slightly off, as if gravity affected them differently. Your ship is impressive, Lee said, unsure how to begin such an unprecedented conversation. Commander Kang smiled. It's one of our smaller vessels, a scout ship. The assembled Alliance officers exchanged nervous glances. Perhaps we should move somewhere more comfortable to talk, Lee suggested. In the conference room, the humans declined offers of refreshment. Science Director Du placed a small device on the table. It projected a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Humanity didn't go extinct, Du explained. We left, or more accurately, we were forced to leave. By whom? Asked Lee. By the precursors to your alliance, said Kang. The early spacefaring species feared our rapid advancement. They gave us a choice, extinction or exile. We chose exile. That's not in our historical records, protested Officer Choi. History is written by the victors, said Medical Officer Jin, her voice soft but firm. We've been watching from beyond the rim for millennia, building our civilization, advancing our technology. Then why return now? Asked Lee. Commander Kang's expression grew grave. Because something is coming. Something that has destroyed countless civilizations before. The artifact you found was designed to detect their approach and call us back. Back for what? Revenge. Security Chief Han's hand drifted toward his weapon. No, said Kang simply. To save you. The conference room fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Lee looked from the humans to her crew and back again. Save us from what? She finally asked. Commander Kang touched the projection device, and the image changed. Now it showed a vast darkness moving between stars, consuming everything in its path. We call them the Void, he said, and they're coming for this galaxy next. The Alliance capital world of Nova Prime had never seen such panic. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the Grand Assembly, voices raised in fear and confusion. Supreme Counselor Kang addressed the gathering, trying to maintain order. We must approach this situation with caution. The reappearance of humans after millennia. They were deemed too dangerous to exist within our society, interrupted the Zivaran delegate. Our ancestors made that decision for a reason. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human vessels had appeared near major trade hubs, military installations, and scientific outposts. They took no hostile action, but their mere presence, and their clearly superior technology, was enough to terrify the Alliance leadership. Aboard the Horizon Asterisk, Captain Lee found herself in an unexpected position. Liaison to the human vessel. Your people seem afraid, said Commander Ba, the human representative who had come aboard. He looked almost identical to many Alliance species, yet carried himself with an unnerving confidence. You've been gone for thousands of years, Lee replied. Believed extinct. And now you return with technology far beyond ours. Ba smiled. We didn't go extinct. We were exiled. And we spent our time wisely. Why return now? Because the beacon was activated. That means the threat has returned as well. The news of humanity's return spread faster than any virus. On every world in the Alliance, people looked to the skies with a mixture of fear and wonder. Ancient stories of humans, once dismissed as myths, were suddenly being retold in homes and schools across the galaxy. On Nova Prime, the delegates continued to argue while displays showed the growing number of human ships appearing at key locations throughout Alliance space. 73 vessels now, each one larger than the biggest Alliance battleship. They're positioning themselves at strategic points, said military advisor Jun, his scaled skin flushed with stress. Classic invasion pattern. Supreme Counselor Kang shook her head. If they wanted to invade, why announce themselves? Why not strike without warning? The Zivaran delegate slammed his appendage on the table. Our ancestors knew the danger of humans, their aggression, their unpredictability, their endless ambition. That's why they were removed from our galaxy. A communications officer rushed into the chamber and whispered something to Counselor Kang. Her eyes widened. The humans are requesting to address the assembly, she announced. They've sent a representative. Murmurs filled the room. Some delegates shouted objections. Others demanded to hear what the humans had to say. Put them through, Kang decided. The main display activated, showing a human woman with silver-streaked hair and dark eyes that seemed to look into each delegate personally. I am Admiral So, commander of the Human Protection Fleet, she said, her voice calm but commanding. We understand your fear, but we have not returned to conquer or seek revenge. Then why have you surrounded our major worlds? Demanded the Zivaran. To protect them, Admiral So replied simply. The threat that approaches does not negotiate. It does not show mercy. It consumes all life it encounters. Meanwhile, aboard the Horizon Asterisk, Captain Lee walked the corridors of her ship with Commander Ba. Crew members stopped to stare as they passed. Most had never seen a human before, knowing them only from historical documents. You said the threat has returned, Lee said. Returned from where? The spaces between galaxies, Ba explained. They are ancient, perhaps as old as the universe itself. They hibernate for millennia, then wake to feed. Feed on what? Life, consciousness, civilization itself. Ba stopped walking, turning to face her directly. We encountered them shortly after our exile began. They had already consumed 3 smaller galaxies. We barely escaped. Lee felt a chill run down her spine. But you did escape. Yes. And we learned. We developed weapons and shields. We studied their patterns. For thousands of years, we've been the unseen guardians of this galaxy, keeping the void at bay. If that's true, why didn't you make contact before now? Ba's expression darkened. Would your people have welcomed us, or would they have seen our return as the fulfillment of their ancient fears? Before Lee could answer, her communications officer called over the ship's system. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Nova Prime. All Alliance vessels are being ordered to return to their home ports immediately. Back on Nova Prime, the assembly had erupted into chaos after Admiral So's transmission ended. Some delegates called for immediate military action against the human vessels. Others argued for diplomatic engagement. A few even suggested surrender, awed by the obvious technological superiority the humans displayed. Supreme Counselor Kang finally managed to restore order. We need more information before we decide on a course of action. I propose sending a delegation to meet with these humans face to face. And if it's a trap? Asked military advisor Jun. Then we will have lost a few delegates, Kang replied grimly. But if what they say is true, and some threat is approaching our galaxy. She left the sentence unfinished, the implication clear to all. The assembly voted. By a narrow margin, they approved sending a delegation. Captain Lee received new orders. The Horizon * would transport the Alliance delegation to meet with the human leadership aboard their flagship, which now orbited a neutral system on the outer rim. As preparations were made, Lee found Commander Ba in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. Your ship will carry the delegates, he noted without turning. Yes, we depart in 6 hours. Your leaders still don't trust us. It wasn't a question. Can you blame them? Lee asked. Your people appear after thousands of years with overwhelming force, claiming to be our protectors against a threat we've never seen. Ba finally turned to face her. Captain Lee, I understand your skepticism, but I must ask you something. In all your historical records, all your studies of the past, have you never wondered why so many ancient civilizations simply disappeared? Why there are empty worlds throughout your territory with the ruins of cultures that seem to vanish overnight? Lee frowned. There are many theories. Plagues, climate collapse, civil wars. Those explain some, but not all. Ba stepped closer. The void has visited this galaxy before. That's why we left the beacons. That's why we've been watching. And that's why we've returned now. If what you say is true, Lee said slowly, why would your people help us after what our ancestors did to yours? Ba smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. Because despite what your histories may say about us, humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our adaptability. It was our compassion, even for those who feared us. As the Horizon * prepared to depart with the Alliance delegation, reports came in of strange sensor readings from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Stars going dark, communications networks failing, and a shadow that seemed to move against the background of space itself. The void was coming, and humanity had returned just in time. In the restricted archives beneath Nova Prime, Captain Lee and Supreme Counselor Kang accessed files that hadn't been viewed in generations. These records were sealed by the founders of the Alliance. Kang explained, scrolling through ancient text. I need special authorization just to know they exist. The files revealed an uncomfortable truth. Humans hadn't died out naturally. Early galactic civilizations had conspired to remove them, frightened by their rapid technological advancement and unpredictable nature. They were given a choice, read Lee. Leave the galaxy or face extinction. And they chose exile, Kang finished. Meanwhile, on the Horizon Asterisk, Science Officer Choi made a discovery that chilled her to the bone. "Captain, I've analyzed the artifact's signal pattern," she reported when Lee returned. "It wasn't just calling the humans. It was warning them. I believe it detected something approaching our galaxy, something that's destroyed other galaxies before." Commander Ba confirmed her theory. "We call them the Void. They consume entire civilizations. We've been fighting them in intergalactic space for centuries, keeping them from reaching you." "Why protect us after what we did to your people?" asked Lee. "Because that's what humanity does," Bai answered simply. "We protect those who cannot protect themselves." The hidden archives were dark and cold. Captain Lee felt like an intruder in this place of buried secrets. The air smelled old, like paper and dust, and forgotten things. Supreme Counselor Kang moved her hand over a scanner. Ancient security systems hummed to life. "These files date back to the founding of the Alliance," Kang said quietly. "What we're about to see may change how we view our entire history." The screen flickered. Words in an old script appeared. Lee leaned forward, her eyes widening as she read. "Project Exodus," she whispered. "The coordinated removal of humanity from galactic society." The files told a story very different from what Lee had learned in school. Humans hadn't died out in some great plague or war. They had been systematically pushed out by a coalition of species who feared them. "Humans advanced too quickly," Kang read aloud. "In just 3 centuries, they went from primitive planetary civilization to matching technologies that took other species millennia to develop." Lee scrolled through more files. "It says here humans were too unpredictable, too emotional, too adaptable. Our ancestors feared what they might become," Kang said. "So they gave them an ultimatum." The screen showed the terms of this ancient choice: leave known space forever, or face a coordinated attack by all other spacefaring species. "They chose exile," Lee said softly, "rather than fight a war they might have lost." "Or might have won," Kang corrected, "at terrible cost to all sides." The next file showed the Exodus. Thousands of human ships departing the galaxy, heading into the empty void between galaxies, a place where no one had ever gone before. The files say the humans promised 2 things before they left. Lee noted, first, that they would not return to seek revenge, and second, that they would leave behind beacons in case. She paused, looking up at Kang. In case they were ever needed. Their eyes met in understanding. The artifact on Nexus 7 was one of those beacons. Back on the Horizon Asterisk, Science Officer Choi had been working nonstop, analyzing data from the artifact. "The signal pattern is complex," she explained to the gathered officers. "At first I thought it was just calling for help, but it's more sophisticated than that. It contains data about the threat it detected." She displayed a series of waveforms on the screen. "These patterns match energy signatures from several dead galaxies we've observed at the edge of our detection range. Galaxies that went dark suddenly, for no apparent reason." Commander Ba nodded. "We call them the Void. They're ancient entities that feed on energy, particularly the energy of conscious thought and civilization." "That's impossible," said Security Chief Han. "Is it?" Ba asked quietly. "Your people have legends of dark gods that devour worlds. The Zivarin have myths about the Star Eaters. The Pellerins speak of the great silence that comes before the end. All these stories have the same source." Captain Lee returned from Nova Prime, her face grave as she entered the briefing room. "The archives confirm everything Commander Ba has told us," she announced. "Humanity was exiled, not extinct, and they left behind warning systems in case." She hesitated. "In case the Void returned," Ba finished for her. "We encountered them shortly after our exile began. They had already consumed 3 smaller galaxies nearby." "How does one fight such a thing?" asked Engineer Sung. "With great difficulty," Ba admitted. "The Void isn't a species or an empire. It's more like a force of nature, a hunger that spreads across space. But we learned to detect them, to predict their movements, eventually to hurt them. For centuries, he continued, humanity has been the shield between your galaxy and theirs. We built outposts in the dark spaces. We developed weapons that could harm them. We sacrificed millions to keep them at bay. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Why? Lee finally asked. Why protect us after what we did to your people? Ba looked surprised by the question. Because that's what humanity does, he said simply. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Captain Lee studied Ba's face, searching for signs of deception or hidden motive. She found none. The Alliance delegates are on their way to meet with your leaders, she said. What will happen then? We'll show them what we know, what we've learned, what's coming. Ba's expression darkened. And then we'll offer to help you prepare. And if the Alliance refuses your help, asked Security Chief Han. Then we will help anyway, Ba replied. Because the alternative is to watch this galaxy die. And we've seen too much death already. Later that night, Captain Lee stood alone in her quarters, staring at the stars through her viewport. Somewhere out there, beyond the visible edge of the galaxy, something was coming. Something that had driven even the mighty humans to become guardians rather than conquerors. Her door chimed. Science Officer Choi entered, carrying a data tablet. I've been reviewing the historical archives we accessed, she said. There's something odd about the founding species of the Alliance. What do you mean? The species that first proposed exiling humanity. They're all extinct now. Choi showed Lee the data. They disappeared approximately 800 years after the human exodus. Their worlds were found empty, their ships abandoned. At the time, it was attributed to a series of natural disasters. Lee felt a chill run down her spine. You think it was the void? I think the humans knew something was coming, Choi said. I think that's why they didn't resist exile. They had larger concerns. And now they've returned to face those concerns again, Lee murmured. With us caught in the middle. The stars seemed colder now, the darkness between them deeper. Lee wondered how many of those stars had already gone dark, their light still traveling across space, even though their worlds had already been consumed. And she wondered if her galaxy would be next. The Alliance Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display showed what lay beyond the galactic rim. A darkness moving between the stars, consuming everything in its path. Without our intervention, Commander Ba explained to the assembled delegates, this threat would reach your core worlds within 50 years. None of your current technology could stop it. Several Alliance vessels had attempted to attack the human ships out of fear. Each attempt had been neutralized without casualties. Defensive systems simply shutting down weapons and engines without causing harm. We offer you partnership, Ba continued. But understand this. The old order ends today. Humanity will take its place in galactic affairs once more. Supreme Counselor Kang rose slowly. And if we refuse, then we will protect you anyway, said Ba. Because that's who we are, but we will not be hidden away again. One by one, the delegates voted. Fear gave way to pragmatism, and finally to a cautious hope. Captain Lee watched from the gallery as a new chapter in galactic history began. She caught Commander Ba's eye, and he nodded slightly in acknowledgement. The species that had once been exiled from the galaxy had returned as its saviors. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. What had been feared for millennia now stood as the final barrier between civilization and oblivion. And across the stars, human vessels took up defensive positions, ready to face the coming darkness. The grand chamber of the Alliance Council was crowded with delegates from 200 worlds. The air felt thick with tension. Captain Lee stood in the gallery above, watching history unfold below. On the central platform, Commander Ba stood next to a holographic display. The image showed a vast darkness spreading between stars, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. This is the void, Ba said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. We have fought it for thousands of years beyond the rim of your galaxy. Now it comes here. The delegates murmured among themselves. Some looked terrified. Others seemed doubtful. "How do we know this threat is real?" asked the Zivaran delegate. "Perhaps this is just a story to make us accept your return." Commander Bai nodded to someone off stage. The holographic display changed. Now it showed live feeds from the edge of the galaxy. Stars were going dark one by one, like candles being blown out. "This is happening now," Ba said. "The outer rim is already being consumed." The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Supreme Counselor Kang had to call for order 3 times before the noise settled. "What can be done?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "We have developed weapons and shields that can fight the void," Ba explained. "We can teach you to build them. We can help you evacuate threatened worlds. We can show you how to detect the first signs of void activity." "And what do you want in return?" asked Military Advisor Jun, his voice hard with suspicion. "A place in this galaxy once more," Bei replied simply. "Our home. Our birthright." The room fell silent again. After millennia of teaching that humans were dangerous, primitive, or extinct, the Alliance now faced the truth. Humans had become their only hope for survival. Supreme Counselor Kang spoke carefully. "You say you've been fighting this void for thousands of years. Why not tell us before now?" "Would you have believed us?" Bai asked. "Would you have welcomed us back based only on our warning?" From her position in the gallery, Captain Lee watched the faces of the delegates. She could see the moment when understanding dawned on each of them. The humans hadn't returned for revenge. They had returned because they were needed. The Pellerin delegate, an ancient being with luminous skin, rose slowly. "Long ago, my people opposed the exile of humanity. We believed it was wrong to fear a species for what they might become rather than what they had done." The chamber was silent as the Pellerin continued. "Now we see what humanity became, not the conquerors we feared, but guardians. They could have let the void take us, a fitting revenge for our ancestors' actions. Instead, they returned to save us." One by one, other delegates stood to speak. Some expressed doubt. Others voiced anger that such a threat had been kept secret. A few called for immediate military action against the void. Throughout it all, Commander Ba stood calmly, answering questions with patience and clarity. Finally, Supreme Counselor Kang called for a vote. "The motion before the Council is to form an alliance with humanity and accept their assistance against the void. All in favor?" Slowly, hands and appendages rose across the chamber. "Not all, but most." "Enough. The motion passes," Kang announced. "Commander Bai, the Alliance accepts your offer of partnership." Bai bowed slightly. "Thank you, Counselor. But understand this. The galaxy must change. Humanity will not exist on the margins. We will take our place in galactic affairs once more." Kang's expression tightened. "And if we refuse these terms, then we will protect you anyway," said Ba. "Because that's who we are. But we will not be hidden away again." The words hung in the air, both a promise and a warning. Later, as the delegates filed out of the chamber, Captain Lee made her way down to the main floor. She found Commander Ba standing alone, looking at the holographic display of the advancing void. "Your speech worked," she said. Ba smiled slightly. "Truth often does, Captain. What happens now?" "Now the real work begins. We'll need to establish defense lines, train your people to use our technology, prepare evacuation routes for the outer colonies." Lee studied his face. "You knew this was coming, didn't you? This isn't the first time the void has entered our galaxy." "No," Bai admitted. "The last time was shortly before we were exiled. We tried to warn the other species, but they thought we were seeking power, not trying to protect them. And those species, all gone, the first victims of the void's last feeding." Lee felt a chill despite the warmth of the chamber. "Why does it come here? Why not stay in empty space?" "The void feeds on consciousness, Captain, on the energy of thought and civilization. Your galaxy is a feast to them. Around them, The chamber emptied as delegates rushed to prepare their worlds for what was coming. Only Supreme Counselor Kame remained, watching them from across the room. "She doesn't fully trust us yet," Bai observed. "Can you blame her?" Li asked. "Everything her people believed about humans has been turned upside down in a matter of days." "Trust will come with time," Ba said. "If we have time." The next morning, the news spread across the galaxy. Humanity had returned. A threat was coming from beyond the rim. The old enemies were now allies against extinction itself. Captain Li stood on the bridge of the Horizon as it joined a mixed fleet of human and alliance vessels. Their mission: to establish the first line of defense at the galaxy's edge. Beside her stood Commander Ba, now the official liaison between humanity and the Alliance. "Look," Ba said, pointing to the view screen. The stars ahead of them seemed to flicker, as if something was passing in front of them. Something vast and hungry and ancient. "The void," Li whispered. Ba nodded. "The battle begins." Across the galaxy, human vessels took up defensive positions around vulnerable worlds. The species that had once been exiled had returned as saviors. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. What had been feared for millennia now stood as the final barrier between civilization and oblivion. And Captain Li, watching the darkness approach, knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The end.